Hello architecture students, this is your tutorial on how to create just your wall elevations. We're not going to worry about the roof right now, we're just going to work on the walls. So what we need for our walls is our floor plan and our typical wall section that you have created. So for me, I went through, I created my typical wall section from the ground up, and I have something right here that I just placed in there. That's what I'm going to call brick veneer. So that's face brick veneer. I have it about an inch thick. That's about as thick as it can go. And then I have siding the rest of the way up until we get to the soffit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at my house, and I am going to actually create kind of a boundary for it. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to move my typical wall section kind of out of the way. So I'm going to bring it somewhere down over here. Alright, so I have a single floor ranch. So I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this my wall elevation projection lines. And I'm going to give that a, you can kind of do what you want. I'm going to give it a blue color. And then I'm going to create another layer, just called my wall elevations. And I'm going to give that its regular old black or white color. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to work on my wall elevation projection line layers that I made blue. Now what we want to do here is we want to find the uppermost corners of every part of our house. So in this case, we're going to create a rectangle around the house a certain amount off. Now if you look at your house, we're going to be going from about the foundation up to the top of the roof. So in my case, you have to think about, okay, what slope did you use for your roof, and what slope did you use for your house, and then how tall is it from the top of the elevation or top of the foundation all the way to the top. This doesn't need to be precise, but you think about it, you got about 8-10 foot walls, and then you have your roof, which account for another 10-12 feet. And so I'm going to be safe here, and I'm going to go about 30 feet. So what I will do is I'm actually going to offset, and I'm going to go 30 feet. And I'm going to offset the widest portions of my house. So if I look on the right-hand side of my house, the farthest line that comes out is the right side. So I'm going to click here, go to this side. All right. And then for the front of the house, the farthest is actually the front of my garage. And don't worry if it's a little line like this. Don't worry about if you see a little line, that's fine. That's the farthest that goes out. Back here, farthest that goes out is this line. And then back here, this whole back side kind of lines up the door and the chimney here. I'm going to use a little line on the door. So I have my 3 lines, kind of hard to see, but I'm not too worried about it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fillet and make sure my fillet is set to 0, 0. And I'm going to fillet my lines. Remember, when you fillet, you can type an M for multiple for what I'm doing here. Alright, and this is what we're going to consider my base, or that top of the foundation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead, highlight this. Remember, I'm going to put this in my wall elevation projection lines. That's what I'm going to work off of. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually attach my typical wall section. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to grab this corner, and I'm going to drag him out a little bit. Okay, so I've drug him out. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually move my entire typical wall section here. So I highlight, I move. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the very top of my foundation wall to that blue line. Now I talked about that your typical wall section here is going to drive your house, and it will. Alright, so I've got this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to project over the top of my wall. So the top of my wall is right here. If I go ahead and I measure this, so I go from here and we go all the way back down to that blue line, and I have 8 feet 10 and 5/8. So I'm gonna take a second and write that down. 8 feet 10 5/8 of an inch. All right. So I'm going to now offset, and I'm going to go 8 feet 10 5/8 of an inch, and I'm going to offset each of my lines. I'm just going to make sure that lines up, which it does, and I'm going to continue offsetting that each direction. There we go. And what I have is the bottom or the top of my foundation wall, this blue line, to the top of my wall right here. Now what I can do is actually project down these sides. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to project down so you get a basic idea all the way there. There's that. Okay, so that's the outer extremities of my left and right. Alright, so my back, I can go from this corner again, back, back. Alright, so now, here comes a little more difficult portion. The right or left sides, or however you determine your house, you remember you have to go from the largest line. So actually over here, my garage from the right side is going to be the most visible. And then back here, I have from where my chimney is all the way back. And the same on this side. And then my garage on this side. So I'm about 7.5 minutes into this preview, and what I have here is my walls. So these are just my basic walls. Now what I'll do here is I want to just show you how this works. I'm going to go to my wall elevation. I'm going to grab my rectangle command. There's one. There's two. There's three. And there's four. So if I go ahead and I turn off my projection lines, you can see that now I have my basic walls, just my outline of my walls. Nothing else is in there yet. You know, this is just from the top to the bottom, left to right. Nothing else, like I said, was in there. So now what I can do is I can start to actually section off parts of my house. I'm going to go back to my wall elevation line. I'm going to grab my line command here, and I'm going to start to determine corners. So we got a corner right here that goes all the way down. Alright, I got a corner here. All the way down. Let's see here, I got a corner here. Alright, and then I'm just going to kind of show you going through this for the front view. Now I can grab my line command, and then where my actual lines are, so now I have that portion. You can see I was a little bit off on that line, so I'm going to go ahead and switch this right back over there. And then once again, I will turn off my section. You can see how I've kind of sectioned off my front view. So this is actually of my 2-stall garage, my 2 double door garage. I have the smaller door garage over here, the bigger one right here in this section. Right here is where my front door is going to be with my little portico. And then I have the girls' room front right here. So just some basic ideas. Here, this where this is. Awesome. And you're going to continue this all the way around the house. Now I'm going to move on kind of to the second portion here, which is going to be my windows and doors. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this my windows and doors projection. I'm going to change this to another color, say about green. And I'm going to go to that line, and now I'm going to project down where my windows would be and where my doors would be. So I'll grab my windows. I've got a window outer extremity right here. I've got a window in the stairwell. And I have my door. My door also has a window. It's got that side light on it. And you can see from the very beginning of the semester when we showed you some of the projects from previous years, how many lines there were. You can see how the lines start to creep up, so it's very important to keep your layers as solid as you can keep them. You know, try to keep them separated so you're not using too many things like walls, windows, and doors all on one layer. Try to keep that nice and separated. Alright, so we go through this here. I got a few more to go. I've got my garage. Screencast-O-Matic makes this very laggy, so that's why I have to actually kind of zoom in a little bit and make sure I'm hitting the right corners. Alright, so there are all my windows and doors set up, and now what I can do is determine where the top of my windows and doors are going to be. They're usually about 8 feet up from the bottom of your floor. So over here what I can do is I'm just going to offset feet. I'll show you a little trick here. What I'm going to do here is, before I type it in, I'm going to click layer, and it says current or source. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select current. So that will give me on my window and door. So it's a little trick you can use without having to change the color of our lines. Alright, so there's a little hiccup in there, but now we are good. The program actually froze, and so now I'm ready to go here. So, okay, now what I was doing is I was offsetting the height of my door. Now this is where you go and look at your door and window schedule, because the front door you chose might be a little bit taller, a little bit shorter, depending on what you want. What we had here was actually, for my door that I picked out, was actually 80 inches. So, you know, ignore the whole 8 feet thing. That didn't really happen. So I'm going to go to one side. As you can see, there it creates right there. I now have my 8 feet. And then what I can do is I can grab this line if my mouse shows up again.